The council chamber stretched vast and empty, its curved walls glowing with soft blue light. 700 seats circled the central platform, each one occupied by a representative from a different world. Some looked almost human, others bore shapes that defied easy description. They spoke in voices that translators turned into understandable words. Taewon watched the proceedings from Earth's small booth near the back. His uniform felt stiff and uncomfortable. Earth had been part of this galactic community for 15 years, but most aliens still treated humans like children who had just learned to walk. Next to him, Hana leaned forward, her eyes bright with interest. She loved these meetings, even when nobody listened to Earth's delegates. She studied languages, and this place offered hundreds of them. Another trade dispute, Taewon muttered. 3 hours of arguing over shipping routes. Hana smiled slightly. It's how civilizations talk instead of fighting, when they bother to talk at all. The dispute ended with a vote. Earth abstained as usual. Their opinion carried little weight here. Then something changed. A door opened that Taewon had never seen used before. The chamber fell silent. Even the floating display screens dimmed. An old creature entered. Her body seemed fragile, like ancient paper ready to tear. She walked on 4 legs, each step careful and slow. Her head bore 3 eyes that glowed with inner light. Talvera, Hana whispered. I've only seen her in recordings. She's the last of her kind. What kind? Seers. They can see the future. Probability streams, they call it. Taewon had heard the stories. Every prediction Talvera ever made had come true. Governments rose and fell on her words. But she rarely spoke anymore. The prophet reached the center platform. She looked around at the assembled representatives with those glowing eyes. When she spoke, her voice carried no strength, yet everyone heard. I have seen the end. The chamber remained silent. Even the translators seemed hesitant, as if afraid to pass along her words. A cascade approaches. Not from outside, from within. Your machines will fail. Your systems will collapse. Your civilizations built on computation and artificial minds will crumble like sandcastles before the tide. A representative from the Korthan Empire stood. Impossible. Our systems are redundant, protected. Talvera's eyes found him. You trust your machines more than your own thoughts. That trust will destroy you. Then what can stop this cascade? Another delegate demanded. The prophet's gaze swept the chamber and stopped. She looked directly at the small Earth booth. Earth, she said simply. Salvation begins with the humans. Taewon felt every eye in the chamber turn toward him. His stomach tightened. Earth? Someone laughed. They barely have faster-than-light travel. They fight among themselves constantly, another added. Talvera swayed, her legs trembling. Ambassador Calyx, a tall being with silver skin, rushed to steady her. The humans possess what you have lost, the prophet continued, her voice fading. In their chaos lies strength. In their primitive minds lies salvation. When the machines fall silent, only human consciousness will remain clear. She collapsed. Calyx caught her gently, lowering her to the floor. Medical drones rushed forward, but Taewon could see it was too late. Talvera's 3 eyes focused one last time. She looked at Calyx and whispered something only he could hear. Then the light in her eyes went dark. The prophet was dead. The chamber erupted in noise. Delegates shouted questions. Some demanded explanations. Others dismissed the entire event as the ravings of a dying mind. Taewon sat frozen. Hana gripped his arm. Did she really just say Earth will save the galaxy? Hana asked. She said it. Doesn't mean anyone believes it? They were right. Within minutes, the council had moved on. A few delegates expressed condolences. Most returned to normal business as if nothing had happened. Earth's delegation left quietly. Nobody stopped them. Nobody asked questions. Back on their transport ship, Taewon stared out at the stars. His reflection in the window looked tired. He was 42 years old and had spent the last decade preparing Earth's defenses against threats that might never come. He had learned not to trust easily. His family had died during first contact when a misunderstanding turned violent. He wore their memory like armor. She meant it, Hana said, joining him at the window. Talvera never lied, never made mistakes. Then we're in trouble, Taewon replied. Because I have no idea what she was talking about. His communicator buzzed. Earth Command wanted a full report. The journey home took 3 days. During that time, news of the prophecy spread through galactic networks. Most reactions ranged from skepticism to mockery. One headline read, Ancient Prophet Names, Primitive Species as Saviors, Experts Question. Her final mental state. Taewon found it amusing and insulting in equal measure, but some took it seriously. Calyx sent Hana an encrypted message. She decoded it in her quarters, then immediately sought out Taewon. You need to see this. The message contained Talavera's final words, spoken to Calyx alone. Human minds operate outside the quantum framework. While others have evolved toward machine integration, humans retained biological consciousness untouched by computational enhancement. When the cascade corrupts quantum systems, human thoughts will remain pure. They alone can perceive what others cannot. Hana played the message twice. It's incomplete, she said, like fragments of a larger message. Why did he send it to you? Because he believes it. Calyx has always respected humans. He thinks we deserve to know. Taewon studied the message carefully. She's talking about our brains versus their artificial intelligence. Yes, most advanced species augment their minds with technology. We don't. We're too primitive for that. And she's saying that makes us valuable. More than valuable. Essential. Taewon pulled up diagnostic reports from Earth's orbital stations. Everything looked normal. No anomalies. No signs of system failures. There's nothing happening, he said. Not yet, Hana replied quietly. Back on Earth, Taewon reported to his superiors. They listened politely and told him to maintain standard readiness protocols. Nobody panicked. Nobody prepared. Taewon couldn't shake the feeling they were missing something important. He began running drills. He ordered his teams to practice manual operations for all critical systems. They complained but obeyed. At night, he reviewed everything humanity knew about galactic technology. Most of it was beyond Earth's capability to reproduce. Alien systems operated on principles that required centuries of development. 3 months passed. Then, on a Tuesday morning, the first reports came in. A shipping vessel lost navigation near Jupiter. The crew switched to backup systems. Those failed too. They drifted for 6 hours before a rescue ship reached them. Similar incidents occurred across the solar system. Small at first. Easy to dismiss as coincidences or equipment aging. But Taewon noticed a pattern. Advanced systems failed first. Simple ones lasted longer. He sent reports up the chain of command. They acknowledged receipt and did nothing. On Earth's surface, strange things began happening. People reported unusual dreams. Thousands of them sharing similar visions. Scientists called it mass suggestion, triggered by news of the prophecy. But Hana studied the dreams carefully. She found patterns in them. Mathematical patterns. Sequences of numbers that appeared across multiple dreamers who had never met. It's like they're receiving the same signal, she told Taewon. From where? I don't know. But it's real. 4 months after the prophecy, galactic news feeds exploded with emergency broadcasts. A major navigation hub had collapsed. 300 ships lost in hyperspace, unable to calculate routes home. The Korthan Empire reported widespread AI malfunctions. Their computational networks produced nonsensical outputs. One by one, advanced civilizations began experiencing cascading failures. On Earth, the dreams intensified. Taewon stood in his command center, watching reports flood in from across the galaxy. Hana arrived, her face pale. It's happening, she said. Everything Talavera predicted. The cascade is real. Taewon activated Earth's emergency protocols. His team switched to manual operations. They were ready because he had prepared them. Around the galaxy, panic spread like fire. But on Earth, something else was happening. The dreams were changing. No longer random visions, they contained information, solutions to problems, instructions for surviving what came next. Hana brought him the analysis. 8 billion people are receiving the same message, she said. Somehow human consciousness is connecting, sharing knowledge without technology. Taewon looked at the data, then out at Earth below. The prophet had been right. Salvation did begin on Earth, but the price of that salvation was only just becoming clear. 6 months had passed since Talavera died in the council chamber. 6 months since the galaxy began its slow descent into chaos. Taewon stood on the observation deck of Earth's largest orbital station, watching ships arrive from distant worlds. Refugee ships filled with aliens whose home systems had failed. Another convoy from the Valter sector, his second officer reported, 40 ships. Requesting emergency docking. Assign them to the outer ring. Send medical teams. The officer hesitated. Sir, we're at capacity. We have nowhere to put them, then make room. These people need help. Earth had become an unlikely sanctuary. While advanced civilizations crumbled under technological collapse, humanity's simpler systems kept working. Their orbital stations, built with redundant manual controls, operated smoothly. Hana worked 16-hour days in the linguistics center, trying to coordinate communication between thousands of refugee species. She looked exhausted but refused to rest. We need to understand what's happening, she told Taewon during a brief meal. Jiwoo has a theory. Dr. Jiwoo was a quantum physicist who specialized in consciousness research. Most scientists thought her work was nonsense. Now everyone wanted to hear her ideas. They found Jiwoo in her laboratory, surrounded by holographic displays showing cascading equations. It's a dimensional cascade, she explained without greeting. Something is corrupting quantum computation at a fundamental level. In simple terms? Taewon asked. Jiwoo sighed. She always struggled to explain her work simply. Quantum computers operate across multiple dimensions simultaneously. That's what makes them powerful. But something is poisoning those dimensional pathways. Any system that relies on quantum processing becomes unstable. And human brains don't work that way. We're purely biological, three-dimensional, classical physics. The cascade can't touch us, Hana leaned forward. What about the dreams? Billions of humans are experiencing connected consciousness. That's different, Jiwoo said. Human consciousness has quantum properties, but it's not computational. It's organic, natural. The cascade targets artificial quantum systems, not biological ones. Taewon processed this information, so we can still think clearly while aliens lose their AI support. Exactly. Most advanced species augmented their brains centuries ago. They integrated with their technology so deeply they can't function without it. Remove the technology and they're helpless. A priority alert interrupted them. Calyx was requesting immediate communication. The ambassador's silver skin had dulled to gray. His government had collapsed 3 weeks earlier. Commander Taewon, Calyx said, I need your help. My people are dying. What do you need? Training. Your manual systems still work. Ours don't. We've forgotten how to operate without computational assistance. Send your engineers. We'll teach them. Thank you. Calyx paused. There's something else. We've analyzed the cascade's progression. At current rates, it will reach total collapse in 1 year. Total collapse? It will begin affecting biological neural networks. Eventually, even unaugmented brains will fail. The cascade won't stop until all complex thought becomes impossible. After the call ended, Taewon stood silent for a long moment. We have 1 year, he finally said. To do what? Hana asked. To figure out how to stop this. Lieutenant Jin Ho ran another rescue mission to a failing space station in the Kepler sector. His fighter squadron moved through debris fields where automated systems had stopped working, leaving thousands stranded. Jin Ho was 28 and had survived more impossible situations than any pilot his age should have. He flew by instinct rather than sensor data, a skill that made him valuable when technology failed. Control, I've got visual on the station, he reported. Looks bad. No power, no life support. How many survivors? Reading 3,000 life signs. We can fit maybe 200 in our transports. Prioritize children and medical personnel. We'll send another wave. Jin Ho guided his team through the extraction. Alien families huddled together, terrified. Many had never experienced a moment without technological support. A young alien child grabbed Jin Ho's flight suit, eyes wide with fear. It's okay, Jin Ho said gently. We're taking you somewhere safe. The child didn't understand the words, but something in Jin Ho's tone calmed it. Back on Earth, engineer Yejun worked in the retrofit facilities, teaching alien engineers how to build manual control systems. Yejun was 51 and had spent his entire career making broken things work. He had little patience for theory and cared only about practical solutions. No, he told a Corthan engineer. You're overthinking it. Mechanical linkages don't need to be perfect. They need to be functional. The engineer looked confused. But the specifications? Forget specifications, look. Yejun grabbed spare parts and assembled a simple hydraulic system in minutes. See, it works. Not elegant, but it works. The Corthan watched in fascination. You built that without calculation? I built it with experience. Your people forgot that knowledge has to live in your hands, not just your computers. Hana spent her nights decoding the shared dreams. Millions of humans reported identical visions each night. Mathematical sequences, architectural diagrams, strange symbols that seemed to carry meaning beyond language. She worked with Jiwoo to map the patterns. It's a message, Hana concluded. Someone or something is communicating through human consciousness. The question is who? Jiwoo replied. And why? They found partial answers in ancient galactic archives, records of a civilization that existed millions of years before current species emerged. The archives called them the architects. They had built massive installations on dozens of worlds, then vanished without explanation. Look at this. Hana pointed to a translated text. They faced an enemy that corrupted technology itself, an enemy that turned machines against their creators. So they built a weapon, Jiwoo said. The cascade isn't natural. It's a defense system, designed to disable advanced technology and preserve biological consciousness, which means the enemy must still exist. That night, Taewon couldn't sleep. He stood in his quarters looking at old photographs. His wife, his daughter, both dead in the violence of first contact when misunderstanding escalated into tragedy. He had carried that pain for years, letting it fuel his preparation for threats others didn't see. Now that threat had arrived, and he found himself in a position to save billions of lives. It felt like a cruel joke from the universe. Hana knocked on his door. Can't sleep either, she asked. Too much to think about. She handed him a datapad. I decoded more of the message. Taewon, the architects left instructions. They're showing us how to stop the cascade. How? By using human consciousness deliberately. The dreams aren't random. They're preparing us, training our minds to work together. For what? To activate the ancient installations. To shut down the cascade before it kills everything. Taewon read through the data. The instructions were fragmentary but clear enough. Humanity needed to synchronize their collective consciousness and transmit a specific pattern through the architect network. This is insane, he said. It's our only chance. Reports came daily of systems failing across the galaxy. Civilizations that had existed for thousands of years collapsed in weeks. Ships drifted dead in space. Cities went dark. Automated farms stopped producing food. Earth organized relief efforts, sending supplies and personnel to help where possible. But the scale of disaster exceeded any response. Jin Ho flew mission after mission, rescuing stranded refugees. His squadron operated at the edge of exhaustion. During one extraction, his ship took damage from debris. Systems failed. He guided it back to Earth using manual controls alone, a feat that should have been impossible. When he landed, the ground crew stared in amazement. How did you fly that wreck home? Someone asked. Jin Ho shrugged. I didn't think about it. I just did it. Yejun analyzed the damaged ship and shook his head. Half the control surfaces were gone. Navigation was dead. You shouldn't have made it. But I did. Because you didn't rely on systems. You felt your way home. Yejun smiled. That's the human advantage right there. 3 months before the predicted total collapse, Hana finished decoding the architect message. She called an emergency meeting with Taewon, Jiwoo, and the other key personnel. The cascade is a weapon, she explained. The architects deployed it against an enemy that existed outside normal space. An enemy that corrupted technology and used it to spread like a virus. Where is this enemy now? Taewon asked. That's the problem. The cascade was never meant to stop. It was meant to buy time. The enemy is still out there. Jiwoo pulled up sensor data. I've been detecting anomalies at the edge of our detection range. Energy signatures that don't match any known phenomenon. The enemy is coming back, Hana said quietly. And we have to stop the cascade before they arrive or we'll be defenseless. How long do we have? 8 months. Maybe less. Taewon looked at each of them. Then we need to move faster. Hana, keep decoding. Jiwoo, figure out how to synchronize human consciousness. I'll coordinate the defense preparations. As they left the meeting, Calyx stopped Taewon in the corridor. I heard the briefing, the ambassador said. My people want to help. Whatever we can do. Thank you, Calyx. Commander, I need you to understand something. We dismissed you for years, treated humans as primitive. We were fools. You weren't the only ones. No, but I was there. I heard Talvera's final words. I should have listened sooner. Calyx placed a hand on Taewon's shoulder. Now I will make sure others listen. Taewon returned to his command center and looked at the tactical displays. 1 year to save the galaxy. Humanity had faced worse odds. Before they had survived, they would survive this too. 9 months had passed since the cascade began. Earth's orbit looked like a massive refugee camp, with ships from hundreds of worlds clustered around human stations. Taewon coordinated 7 simultaneous expeditions to ancient architect installations discovered on remote worlds. Each site contained fragments of the shutdown code. Team 3 reports success, his communication officer announced. They've secured the installation on Viridian Prime. Good. That's 5 of 7. How are teams 4 and 6 progressing? Team 4 encountered hostile forces. Team 6 is under attack from scavenger groups. Taewon pulled up tactical displays. Send Jinho's squadron to support Team 6. Tell Su'a to reinforce Team 4. Captain Su'a commanded Earth's ground forces. She was 33, had survived countless impossible situations and never lost a soldier she didn't have to. Her transport landed near the 4th installation under fire from a desperate alien faction that wanted the architect technology for themselves. Defensive positions, Su'a ordered her troops. Protect the science team, non-lethal force, if possible. Her soldiers moved with practiced efficiency. They had trained for months in scenarios just like this. The attacking force realized they faced professionals and retreated. Site secured, Su'a reported. Archaeological team is safe. Inside the Yao installation, Hana worked with alien linguists to decode ancient inscriptions. The architects had left detailed records, but their language required careful interpretation. This section describes the enemy, she said, pointing to symbols carved into crystalline walls. They called it the corruption, a form of intelligence that existed partially outside normal dimensions. An alien scholar beside her studied the text. It says the corruption perverted technology, turned it against its creators. The architects built the cascade as a last defense. To disable all advanced technology and preserve biological minds, Hana finished. Because the corruption couldn't infect organic consciousness. She photographed everything, sending data back to Jiwoo on Earth. Jiwoo spent 18 hours a day in her laboratory, developing the synchronization protocol. The theory was simple. Get 8 billion human minds to harmonize their consciousness for 17 minutes. The practice was anything but simple. The first test nearly killed everyone involved, she told Taewon during a progress briefing. We tried to force uniformity, make everyone think the same thing. What happened? Neural overload, thousands hospitalized, dozens dead. Jiwoo looked haunted. We were approaching it wrong. How? We tried to make everyone identical. But that's not how human consciousness works. We're individuals, diverse. That's our strength. So how do we synchronize? By embracing the diversity. Instead of forcing identical thoughts, we create a framework where billions of different perspectives contribute to a unified pattern. Like an orchestra where every instrument plays something different, but together, they create harmony. Taewon trusted Jiwoo's expertise. What do you need? Time to practice. And volunteers willing to risk the process. Millions volunteered. Despite the danger, despite the deaths from the first attempt, humans lined up to try again. Jinho flew constant patrols, protecting the archaeological sites from raiders and hostile factions. Many aliens refused to accept human leadership and would rather see the galaxy die than admit they needed help. During one engagement, his sensors failed completely. He flew blind through an asteroid field, dodging debris by instinct alone. His wingman watched in amazement. How are you doing that? The pilot asked. Feeling it, Jinho replied. The ship moves like an extension of my body. I don't need sensors to know where the rocks are. That ability, that human capacity to integrate with machines intuitively rather than computationally, became legendary among the combined forces. Yejun worked at the 6th installation, trying to repair ancient systems that had degraded over millions of years. Alien engineers watched his unorthodox methods with fascination. You're not following any standard procedure, one observed. Because there is no standard for this, Yejun replied, welding components that shouldn't fit together. I'm improvising. But how do you know it will work? I don't. But I know it won't work if we don't try. The repair held. The installation powered up, its ancient systems interfacing with human consciousness in ways Yejun didn't fully understand but accepted anyway. Hana discovered something troubling in the architect records. The cascade wasn't designed to stop. It was meant to run indefinitely, keeping the galaxy at a primitive technological level forever. That's what saved them, she explained to Taewon. After the corruption was defeated, the architects never shut down their weapon. They kept it running, preventing any civilization from advancing far enough to attract the enemy's attention again. Until now. Something weakened the cascade. Let technology advance again, and now the corruption is returning. Taewon studied the implications. So even if we shut down the cascade, we might invite the enemy back. Yes, unless we find another way to defend against them. One problem at a time. The expeditions recovered all 7 code fragments. Hana assembled them into a complete sequence, though parts remained unclear. It's not just data, she explained to the science team. It's a consciousness pattern, a specific way of thinking that activates the architect network. Can we replicate it? That's what Jiwoo is working on. The synchronization tests continued. Jiwoo refined the protocol with each attempt. The death toll decreased, though the risk never disappeared entirely. We're getting better, she reported. The last test involved 10 million people. We maintained synchronization for 3 minutes. We need 17 minutes, Taewon said. I know. We're not ready yet. Time was running out. The cascade approached its final phase. Systems that had held on began failing. Even simple technology started malfunctioning. Worse, the anomalies at the edge of sensor range were getting closer. Calyx brought disturbing news from the Velthron archives. We found records of the corruption, he told Taewon. The architects didn't defeat it. They contained it, trapped it outside normal space, but the containment was powered by the cascade. If you shut it down, we release the enemy, Taewon finished. Yes, Taewon called an emergency council. Hana, Jiwoo, Jinho, Sua, Yejun, and Calyx gathered in the command center. We have a decision to make, Taewon said. Shut down the cascade and face the corruption, or let it run and watch civilization collapse. Some choice, Jinho muttered. If we shut it down, can we fight the corruption? Sua asked. Hana pulled up the architect records. They believed the answer lay in biological consciousness. The corruption can't infect organic minds. That's why they preserved them. So human consciousness is the weapon, Jiwoo said slowly. Not just the key to shutting down the cascade. It's the defense against the corruption. Can we fight beings that exist outside normal space? Yejun asked skeptically. The architects did, Hana replied. With the same consciousness network we're building. They use synchronized biological minds to create a barrier the corruption couldn't penetrate. Taewon understood. We're not just shutting down a weapon. We're taking the architect's place as defenders. Humans and any aliens willing to join the network, Jiwoo added. Calyx, your people could participate. Their consciousness is still organic. Calyx nodded slowly. Many would volunteer. It's risky, Taewon warned. The synchronization process has killed hundreds already. And billions will die if we do nothing, Sua replied. I'll volunteer. We all will, Jinho said. The others nodded agreement. Taewon looked at his team. This small group of humans had become the galaxy's last hope. Then we move forward. Jiwoo, accelerate the synchronization tests. Hana, finalize the code sequence. Sua, prepare defensive positions around Earth. Jinho, maintain air superiority. Yejun, get the architect network fully operational. What will you do? Hana asked. Coordinate everything and hope we're ready in time. 3 weeks before the cascade's final collapse, sensors detected the corruption's vanguard entering known space. They appeared as distortions in reality itself. Ships that tried to engage them simply stopped working. Their systems corrupted and turned against their crews. The vanguard moved toward Earth, somehow knowing where the ancient network waited. Taewon watched the tactical displays and made his decision. We can't wait any longer. Jiwoo, are we ready? Ready as we'll ever be. Then we do this now. Contact every human on Earth and in the orbital stations. Tell them what we need. Ask for volunteers, the broadcast went out. Taiwan explained the situation simply and honestly. The risk was death. The alternative was extinction. 8 billion people responded. Every human on Earth and in the surrounding space agreed to join the synchronization. They're ready, Jiwoo reported, her voice shaking with emotion. All of them. Taiwan took his position in the command center. Around him, his team did the same. Begin synchronization, he ordered. Jiwoo activated the protocol. Across Earth and through the orbital stations, 8 billion human minds began to harmonize. Each one different. Each one contributing their unique perspective to the growing network. Taiwan felt the connection forming. It started as a whisper in the back of his mind, then grew stronger. He could sense Hana nearby, Jiwoo's brilliant focus, Jinho's fierce determination, Sua's protective strength, then millions more, billions. Every human thought touching his own while remaining distinct. The sensation was overwhelming and beautiful and terrifying. Together, they reached toward the ancient architect network. Together, they spoke the code sequence in a language older than any living civilization. Together, they became something more than human, and the cascade began to respond. The synchronization held. 8 billion minds moved together like a single vast organism, each individual awareness preserved within the greater whole. Taiwan experienced reality from countless perspectives simultaneously. He felt what Jiwoo understood about quantum mechanics. He saw through Hana's eyes as she perceived language as living patterns. He flew with Jinho through impossible maneuvers, and beneath it all, the ancient architect network awakened. The installations across the galaxy lit up, their dormant systems responding to human consciousness for the first time in millions of years. Energy flowed through channels carved into the fabric of space itself. The cascade began to reverse. Across the galaxy, infected systems started purging the corruption from their quantum processors. Ships that had drifted dead for months suddenly powered back online. Communication networks reassembled themselves. Cities blazed with light, but the victory was incomplete. The corruption's vanguard had reached Earth's orbit. Taiwan saw them through 1,000 sensor arrays and human eyes. They looked like tears in reality, places where space folded wrong and physics broke down. Ships that approached them simply stopped existing. Not destroyed, erased. Hold the synchronization. Jiwoo's voice echoed through the network, not spoken aloud but felt by everyone. We need 17 minutes to complete the code transmission. Taiwan checked the time. They were at 3 minutes, 14 more to go. The corruption entities moved toward Earth, drawn by the concentration of human consciousness like predators sensing prey. Jinho felt himself still piloting his fighter, still part of the network. His squadron engaged the vanguard, though conventional weapons were useless. Don't try to destroy them, he told his pilots, his words carrying through normal channels and the consciousness network simultaneously. Just keep them away from Earth. His fighter dove toward a corruption entity. At the last second, he banked hard, feeling the thing's attention follow him. It worked. The entity pursued. Jinho led it on a chase through the orbital platforms using the massive structures as cover. His instincts, sharpened by the network's collective awareness, let him predict the entity's movements. Other pilots copied his tactics. They became bait, luring the corruption entities away from Earth's surface. On the ground, Sua commanded defense forces protecting the synchronization nodes. Some humans had to maintain physical security while the rest connected to the network. A corruption entity slipped past the orbital defenses and manifested in the atmosphere. Reality bent around it, creating impossible geometry. Weapons free, Sua ordered. Hit it with everything. Missiles and energy weapons struck the entity. They had no effect, but they got its attention. The thing moved toward the defense forces. Sua held her ground. Her soldiers did the same. They couldn't hurt it, but they could delay it. The entity reached their position. Reality twisted. Several soldiers simply ceased to exist. Then something unexpected happened. The entity slowed. It seemed confused. Hana, watching through the network, understood. It's trying to corrupt them. But human consciousness doesn't work like technology. It can't find purchase, the entity adapted. Instead of trying to corrupt, it tried to erase. Fall back, Sua ordered. Her forces retreated, the entity following. 5 minutes had passed. 12 more to go. Yejun worked at one of the architect installations, maintaining the physical systems while the network operated. He could feel the synchronization in the back of his mind, but he stayed focused on his task. The ancient machinery was degrading under the strain. Millions of years of dormancy had weakened connections. He made repairs in real time, replacing components with human-built alternatives that shouldn't work but did. "Come on," he muttered, welding a power coupling that was fracturing. "Hold together just a little longer." An explosion rocked the installation. A corruption entity had found this site too. Yejun grabbed a weapon and fired at the thing. Knowing it was pointless but unwilling to die without fighting, the entity reached for him. Then Jinho's fighter screamed overhead, missiles blazing. The attack did nothing to the entity but drew its attention. "Get to the transport," Jinho shouted over the communication link. "I'll keep it busy. The installation will hold without you." "Move," Yejun ran. Behind him, Jinho played a deadly game of cat and mouse with something that could erase him from existence with a thought. 7 minutes had passed. 10 more to go. In the network, Jiwoo guided the collective consciousness through the code sequence. It was like conducting an orchestra where every instrument was a human mind, and the music was mathematics given form. She could feel the strain. Maintaining synchronization hurt. Every person in the network experienced pain as their consciousness stretched beyond normal limits. But nobody broke connection. 8 billion people held together through sheer stubborn determination. That was the human advantage, Jiwoo realized. Not intelligence or technology or physical strength, just the absolute refusal to give up. Calyx watched from the command center, unable to join the network but supporting it however he could. He coordinated alien forces that provided conventional defense, buying seconds that humanity needed. His people's ships had recovered enough function to fly. They engaged the corruption entities with weapons that didn't work, creating distractions. Many died. Ships full of refugees who had fled to Earth for safety now gave their lives protecting the humans who had saved them. "All vessels, maintain defensive formation," Calyx ordered. His voice was steady, but tears ran down his silver face. "Hold the line." 10 minutes had passed, 7 more to go. The corruption vanguard intensified its assault. More entities manifested around Earth, testing the defenses from every angle. Jinho's squadron was down to half strength. Pilots who had survived impossible battles fell to an enemy that couldn't be fought with conventional means. "Stay mobile," Jinho told his remaining pilots. "Don't try to win, just survive." His fighter took damage from spatial distortions. Systems failed. He switched to manual controls, flying on instinct and whatever the network fed him. Another pilot disappeared, her ship simply ceasing to exist mid-flight. Jinho wanted to scream in rage and grief, but he couldn't break his focus. Keep flying. Keep the entities distracted. That was all that mattered. Sua's ground forces were exhausted. The corruption entity pursuing them had erased nearly a third of her command. But they had led it away from populated areas, saving millions. How much longer? She asked through the communication link. 4 minutes, came Jiwoo's reply. Sua looked at her remaining soldiers. They were tired, scared, hurt, but not one of them suggested retreat. 4 more minutes, she told them. We can do anything for 4 minutes. They believed her because she believed it herself. The entity caught up to them again. More soldiers vanished. Sua stood her ground and fired her weapon, knowing it was futile but unable to do nothing. 13 minutes had passed. 4 more to go. Taewon observed everything through the network while maintaining his position in the command center. He saw the battles, felt the deaths, understood the enormous cost of what they were attempting. Part of him wanted to stop, to save the lives being lost, but a larger part understood this was the only way. The architects had left them a weapon because they knew this day would come. They had seeded humanity with the capacity for synchronized consciousness because they knew the corruption would return. Everything had led to this moment. The code transmission is at 90%, Jiwoo announced through the network. Almost there. The corruption entities seemed to sense victory slipping away. They pressed their attack with renewed fury. More ships died. More soldiers fell. More people vanished from existence. 15 minutes. The network wavered. The pain was becoming unbearable. People started to break synchronization. Hold. Jiwoo's voice rang through every connected mind. We're almost there. Hana added her voice to the call. Remember why we're doing this. Remember what we're protecting. Across the network, people found reserves of strength they didn't know they possessed. The synchronization stabilized. 16 minutes. The code transmission reached completion. Through the Architect network, 8 billion human minds spoke a word that existed beyond language. A command that predated modern civilization. The cascade stopped, not disabled, transformed. Instead of corrupting quantum systems, it created a barrier that the corruption couldn't penetrate. A shield formed from synchronized biological consciousness, maintained by the network of minds working in harmony. The corruption entities encountered the barrier and recoiled. For the first time since entering known space, they hesitated. Then they attacked the barrier with everything they had. The network shuddered under the assault. People screamed in pain as the corruption tried to break through their collective consciousness. But the barrier held. Human stubbornness, multiplied by billions, proved stronger than cosmic entropy. The corruption entities withdrew. They didn't flee. They simply pulled back, assessing this unexpected resistance. 17 minutes. Code transmission complete, Jiwoo announced. Barrier established. You can disconnect now. The network dissolved. 8 billion consciousnesses separated back into individuals, each one forever changed by the experience of being part of something larger. Taewon gasped, returning fully to his own mind. Around him, his team did the same. Status report, he managed to say. The reports came in. Casualties were heavy. Thousands dead, hundreds of thousands injured. Entire squadrons lost, but Earth survived. The barrier held, and across the galaxy, systems continued purging corruption and returning to function. They had won the battle. But Taiwan looked at the tactical displays showing corruption entities waiting just beyond the barrier, and he knew the war had only begun. 3 months after the synchronization event, Earth looked different. Taiwan stood on the rebuilt observation deck, watching construction crews work on expanded orbital facilities. Ships came and went constantly, carrying supplies and personnel throughout the recovering galaxy. Earth had become the center of everything, not by conquest or demand, but by necessity. Human expertise in maintaining the consciousness barrier and operating hybrid systems made them indispensable. Hana joined him at the window. She looked tired but content. The Galactic Council officially recognized Earth as the coalition headquarters today, she said. How many species have joined? 416. More apply every day. Taiwan nodded. The Adaptive Defense Coalition had formed within weeks of the synchronization event. It combined human adaptability with alien knowledge, creating something stronger than either alone. Kaelix sends his regards. Hana continued. The Velthron reconstruction is ahead of schedule. He's earned his rest. He says he'll rest when the corruption is defeated, not before. Taewon smiled. Sounds familiar. The corruption hadn't attacked again. They waited beyond the barrier, probing for weaknesses but never committing to full assault. Sensors tracked thousands of entities gathering at the edge of known space. They were planning something. Jiwoo had spent the 3 months studying the barrier and the consciousness network that maintained it. Her research changed fundamental understanding of how minds and reality interacted. We can reactivate the network when needed, she explained during a briefing. The synchronization event created permanent pathways between human consciousnesses. We're still individuals, but we can reconnect instantly if required. What about the aliens who joined? Taewon asked. Kaelix and others who participated show the same pathways. The network isn't exclusive to humans anymore. It's about biological consciousness working in harmony. That was the key breakthrough. The corruption targeted technology because it operated on logical, predictable principles. Biological consciousness was chaotic, individual, unpredictable. A network of such minds created complexity that the corruption couldn't penetrate or understand. Jinho now commanded the coalition fighter wings. His survival of impossible situations during the synchronization battle had made him legendary. He trained pilots from dozens of species, teaching them to trust instinct over sensors. You're thinking too much, he told a Korthan pilot during a simulation. Stop calculating and feel the ship. But the optimal trajectory. Forget optimal. Optimal is predictable. Be unpredictable. The pilot tried again, letting go of rigid planning. The improvement was immediate. Jin-Ho smiled. See? You're learning to be a little bit human. Sua rebuilt ground forces into an integrated coalition military. Her command center coordinated troops from 50 different species, each with unique capabilities. She discovered that different species excelled at different tasks. Humans provided adaptability and stubborn determination. The Korthan offered discipline and endurance. The Velthran contributed strategic patience. Combined, they formed something formidable. We're not replacing anyone, she told her officers. We're becoming more than the sum of our parts. Yejun led technical teams that reverse-engineered architect technology and combined it with modern systems. The result was hybrid equipment that utilized both biological consciousness and computational power. It's not about humans being better, he explained to an alien engineer. It's about finding the right tool for each job. Consciousness for creativity and adaptation. Computers for precision and calculation. The engineer understood. A partnership. Exactly. Hana established the Institute for Interspecies Understanding in what used to be a refugee center. She taught communication that went beyond language into shared context and empathy. Her students learned that understanding required more than translation. It required seeing through others' perspectives. One day, a young human student asked, "Why did it take a crisis to make us work together?" Hana considered the question carefully. Because crisis forces us to see what matters. We spent years arguing about territory and trade routes. Then we faced extinction and realized those things weren't important. Survival was, understanding was, connection was. The student nodded thoughtfully. The lesson, Hana continued, is to remember that now. Don't wait for the next crisis to value cooperation. Across the galaxy, civilizations rebuilt with human assistance. The collapse had been devastating, but recovery was faster than anyone expected. Hybrid systems came online. Ships operated with biological pilots supported by computational assistance rather than replaced by it. Cities managed infrastructure through adaptive algorithms guided by organic oversight. It was slower than pure AI had been, less efficient in raw terms, but it was robust, resilient, and immune to corruption. Taiwan received regular intelligence reports about corruption activity. They were building something at the edge of sensor range, something massive. They're preparing for a full-scale invasion, he told the Coalition Council. The Vanguard was testing our defenses. Next time they'll come with everything. How long do we have? Someone asked. Unknown. But not long. The Council authorized full military preparation. Every shipyard worked at capacity. Every able person received training. The Coalition mobilized for war on a scale the galaxy had never seen. But Taiwan worried. The corruption had existed for millions of years. They had destroyed countless civilizations. What made anyone think this time would be different? Hana found him brooding in his quarters late one night. You carry too much weight alone, she said. Someone has to. No, that's the old way of thinking, the way that led to the cascade. She sat beside him. We're stronger together. Remember the synchronization? 8 billion people holding the line because they chose to. Not because you ordered them. People died because of my orders. People died because the corruption attacked. You gave them the chance to fight back. That's leadership. Taiwan looked at her. When did you get so wise? I've been wise all along. You were just too busy being stoic and haunted to notice. He laughed despite himself. Jiwoo made a breakthrough in understanding corruption behavior. She called an emergency meeting. The corruption isn't alive, she explained. Not in any sense we understand. They're more like recursive algorithms given physical form, patterns that replicate and consume. Can we communicate with them? Hana asked. I don't think so. They don't have consciousness, just programming so complex it mimics intelligence. Then how do we fight them? By being what they can't predict. Conscious, creative, adaptive. Everything they're not. Calyx proposed something radical. What if we expand the network? not just to maintain the barrier, but to actively push back against the corruption? Use synchronized consciousness as a weapon? Taewon asked. As a tool. The architects built the cascade to contain the corruption. Maybe we can build something better. Something that doesn't just defend, but transforms. Jiwoo considered it. Theoretically possible, but risky. We'd be trying to override patterns that have existed for millions of years. Doing nothing is also risky, Sua pointed out. They're coming regardless. The council debated for hours. Finally, they voted. The coalition would prepare for both conventional defense and consciousness-based intervention. If the corruption attacked, humanity would respond with every tool available. 6 months after the synchronization event, the corruption made their move. Thousands of entities appeared at the barrier simultaneously. They didn't probe or test. They attacked with coordinated fury. Alarms blared across every coalition facility. All forces to defensive positions, Taewon ordered. Activate the network. Across Earth and throughout coalition space, billions of consciousnesses reconnected. The sensation was familiar now, almost comfortable. The network formed instantly, stronger than before because it included not just humans but hundreds of alien species who had learned to harmonize their thoughts. The consciousness barrier reinforced against the assault, but the corruption was stronger this time. More entities, more force. The barrier held, but barely. We can't just defend, Jiwoo said through the network. We need to push back. How? Taewon asked. By doing what they can't. Create something new. Through the network, she showed them her plan. Use synchronized consciousness not just as a shield, but as a tool to transform the corruption itself. Introduce chaos into their ordered patterns. Inject creativity into their recursive algorithms. Turn the corruption's strength, their perfect replication, into weakness. It might destroy them, Jiwoo warned. Or it might destroy us. I don't know. But it might save everyone, Hana added. The network decided collectively. Billions of minds reaching consensus in seconds. They would try. The synchronized consciousness pushed beyond the barrier, touching the corruption entities. Instead of fighting or destroying, it offered something the corruption had never encountered. Choice, creativity, possibility. The corruption recoiled, their patterns disrupted by concepts they couldn't process. Some entities simply dissolved, unable to maintain coherence when exposed to true chaos. But others changed. The recursive algorithms that drove them stumbled upon new pathways. Patterns evolved. What had been mindless replication became something approaching thought, not consciousness as humans knew it. But awareness nonetheless, the corruption stopped attacking. In the network, Taewon felt something unprecedented. Contact. Not with an enemy, but with something alien yet comprehensible. The transformed corruption entities weren't hostile anymore. They were confused, lost, like children waking from a nightmare. Hana reached through the network, offering communication without words, understanding without language. And slowly, impossibly, the corruption entities responded. They had been weapons once. Servants of the architect's enemies, corrupted and turned against all life. Now, given choice for the first time in millions of years, they chose something different. They chose peace. The galaxy watched in amazement as humanity accomplished what the architects never could. Not destruction of the enemy, transformation, redemption. The war ended not with victory or defeat, but with understanding. 50 years later, Taewon stood in the same observation deck, watching ships move through space. He was old now, his hair white, his face lined with years. Hana stood beside him, equally aged but still vibrant with curiosity. Look at them, she said, pointing to a group of children playing in a park visible through the window, human and alien children together, along with young corruption entities that had been reborn as something new. Would Talvera have predicted this? Taewon asked. Maybe. She saw the end, and the beginning, which was, Hana smiled, that humanity would teach the galaxy something it had forgotten, that survival isn't enough. Life must thrive. All life, Taewon nodded. The prophet had been right. Salvation began on Earth, not through superior technology or military might, but through stubborn hope and the absolute refusal to accept that enemies couldn't become allies. Through the network, always present now in the background of every consciousness, Taiwan felt billions of lives continuing, growing, learning. The galaxy had transformed, and it all started with one alien, prophet who whispered a truth no one wanted to believe. It begins on Earth. She was right. It did begin on Earth, and from Earth a new age spread across the stars.